Is Mindy coming? Are you in?
Talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll begin the meeting,
Okay.
and we'll have a roll call, please. Oh, excuse me, first,
Yes.
before we start that, let's do the pledge of allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Judy, roll call.
Okay. We have Walter, excused, Edley? Here. Gonzalez?
Here.
Ferguson?
Here.
Nemitz here, and we're missing Mr. Leonard, who is excused and absent. Everybody, we have a quorum?
We do.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, at the agenda, I need to make one change, which is appointing the temporary chair. So I would need a nomination from the board as to who would be the temporary chair.
Can we, Mr. Chair, or Acting Chair Gonzalez, could we review the bylaws for that to just refresh everybody what the duties of the chair are? Would that be okay?
Sure, I don't have the bylaws on me right
I
now.
think I have them in my phone. Hold on one second. One moment, please.
Yeah, the bylaws are not in the zoning ordinance, but they were, I believe, last amended in like 2015.
Yeah, I think so. Let me find out from Miss Claire Carner here. I think I,
Back at home.
hold on, Miss Claire Carner, I do have an email from you. Sorry for the delay, folks. Just so that we know the duties of that. Here we go. Got it. Okay. Mr. Chair, may I have permission to read those?
Please.
East Bay Township Planning Commissioner bylaws, 1.3, duties. The chairperson shall preside at all meetings, appoint committees, and perform such other duties as prescribed by the Planning Commission. The vice chair shall act in the capacity of the chairperson in his or her absence, and in the event the office of the chairperson becomes vacant, the vice chair shall succeed to the office for an unexpired term, and the Planning Commission shall select a successor to the office of the vice chair for unexpired term. The secretary shall execute the documents in the name of the Planning Commission, perform the duties herein, and shall perform the duties as the Planning Commission may determine.
Thank you. May I have a nomination for the position of acting chairman for this evening only?
For this evening only, I would nominate Mr. Gonzalez, Chairman Gonzalez, Commissioner Gonzalez.
I would support that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
So it's just for tonight?
Just for tonight.
Okay. And then,
Because Dan will be back at the next meeting, and as vice chair, he would take over.
okay,
Okay, this is just because he's not here.
right. So we're not electing, what's the
No,
procedure?
we'll put election of officers on an upcoming agenda
Yeah.
to fill the position of chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that we'll have a full commission by then?
You know, that's a great question, and that would probably be best directed at the supervisor. She appoints the new
Okay.
positions.
I have to ask you a question. Then it says in here that should preside over all meetings. What is the responsibility of the chair to attend is a site plan an official meeting?
Yes?
Yeah, it's a public
Okay,
meeting.
so when we go to appoint a chair, we're going to need to make sure that the chair can make the site plan meetings.
That'd be right.
Okay. All right. Just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Right, the second item on the agenda is to be removing item 8A from the agenda.
Yeah, I would recommend before approving the agenda, making any modifications to the
Right.
agenda.
So that is modification, since we're removing the TC Water Sports issue. That being said, can we have a motion for the modified agenda?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the modified agenda, removing TC Water Sports and doing a postponement of that to a future date. And we should approve May 17th, 2022.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, approval of the minutes. I have a chance to read the minutes.
Did someone second the
I
motion?
didn't hear anybody.
I thought you had, but okay.
No, but I will.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because Ann's taking notes remotely, so, just so she got that,
Okay.
wherever she is.
Then we'll do it again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Good. Approval of the minutes for May 3rd.
Let's see.
I didn't see anything
Okay.
that stood out, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for May 3rd's meeting.
Support.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Same thing. For the approval of the site visit of May 3rd. There was a site visit, so we
Yeah.
need to approve that also.
And one thing we've been doing is kind of putting it all together, so if you,
I know, but we didn't.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan minutes of May 3rd as well.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, public comment. Is there anybody for public comment on any item other than an agenda item?
Sally Sansel, 1717 US 31 North, speaking on behalf of myself and as president of the Port Traverse.
Oh, turn the microphone toward you, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right, Judy, thanks. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I have some information that I think would be very helpful for the commission. First of all, I would like you to turn to page 97 of tonight's meeting packet, or page 44 of the master plan. There's a map of beautiful East Bay, and down at the bottom of that page 44 is a picture of beautiful Port Traverse. And so I would like to thank you for including our photograph here of Port Traverse in your master plan. This shows our beautiful residential complex along the curve on US 31 between the Grand Beach and the Sugar Beach resorts. This is the peaceful area of our complex, right along the busy highway. We have lots of noise at our entrance, and we all moved here knowing that there was a main highway outside of our fence with thousands of cars and trucks and motorcycles buzzing by each day. We can also hear when someone gets a hole-in-one at Pirates Cove Mini Golf Course. They scream with joy. On the north side of the complex at the waterfront is where we used to take refuge and seek our peace and quiet, or eat our breakfast or our lunch or our dinner on our decks. Back in the late 1970s and 1980s, the entire decade, PT was surrounded by mom-and-pop motels and resorts. Later, the Sugar Beach and Grand Beach resorts were built in the early to mid-1990s, replacing the old resorts. Both the Sugar and Grand were family places, and they still allowed us some peace and quiet. A dock and a few watercraft were kept by Sugar Beach. Then in around 2014, the Carnival showed up and erected its seasonal business next door to our residential complex on the Bayside without a site plan review, and has seriously expanded its business over the past 8 years. This waterfront area at Port Traverse was our quiet and peaceful area with fantastic views, and we could hear voices of children playing in the sand or wading out in the water. Not anymore. The township has authority to enact zoning ordinances and enforce them. That is what your citizens and taxpayers are asking. Enforce them, please. Zoning is accomplished by regulations that provide for, among other things, public health, safety, and welfare purposes, for the protection from nuisances by creating compatibility between neighboring land uses, by limiting incompatible neighboring uses, and property values are also protected. We did not move next door to a carnival. It invaded next door. The Sugar Beach Resort and Villas have a special zoning for their property. It is not zoned for a commercial water sports business, offering 12 hours per day of watercraft rental to the general public. TC Water Sports is a standalone business, and the East Bay ZBA determined that it is not an accessory business to the hotel at its December 2021 meeting. If a homeowner or business owner violates zoning regulations, the owner suffers the consequences by not following the rules. Actions taken have consequences, be they negative or positive. Not only has TC Water Sports violated zoning rules, but items spelled out in the East Bay Resolution 2007-4, as well as the 2007 dock permits from Eagle and Ace. Only 4 boats and 4 jet skis are supposed to be at that dock. That is 8 watercraft, not 22 or 24, nor counting the Pearsall boat that they had been operating there for a number of years that was docked right on the property line. And that doesn't include the kayak, stand-up paddleboard rental customers. Unless you stop them, they are moving the dock from 83 feet away to now only 40 feet away from our property line, bringing noise, safety issues, gasoline spills, and fumes that much closer to our homes and shoreline. This room is about 40 feet. That's how far away it's going to now be. In addition, they are not asking for permission from this commission to have a business located here or expand it. They are telling you that they have already expanded this water sports business years ago and now want you to tell them it's okay that they did this by having you all approve their site plan applications. Part 2 to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Okay, is there any correspondence?
We received quite a bit of correspondence, which you've all received related to the TC Water Sports application that will all be in your packet on June 7th when the public hearing is held.
Thank you. Okay, to the business at hand, which is the master plan update. So,
I thought that was you whistling. You personally. I was like, okay. Good one.
Claire?
Sure. Okay, so you'll see the master plan draft in your packet tonight. So this is the culmination of a lot of work. I looked back at past meetings, so this began in the summer of 2020. So we're almost 2 years into this master plan update. Just to kind of review the process, we began by holding a number of visioning sessions with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission held monthly work sessions that were open to the public to review drafts of this ordinance. So I know that both Renee and Carl have come into the process kind of midstream, but the Planning Commission as a whole has reviewed each one of these background chapters incrementally throughout the last couple of years. So there's been 2 joint sessions that have been held with the Township Board. One was more of a visioning session at the beginning, and then the second one was in working on the action plan and prioritization of those actions. So included in this this draft master plan, you've got the community profile that goes through data and trends related to housing, economics, transportation. You've got 18 different maps as well as 26 tables that go through a lot of the demographic census data as well as natural features, transportation, inventory of that. We have a natural resources chapter, a community facilities chapter, Parks and Recreation. That one is not as in-depth because we do have our Parks and Recreation master plan that we can refer back to. There's a Housing and Neighborhoods chapter that has a whole bunch of data and information and trends related to housing over the last few years. There's a Business and Economic Development chapter. That's the one that we worked on as a planning commission with kind of a vision for the US 31 corridor, as well as a vision for the Hammond corridor, and has some kind of placemaking and different ideas, as well as transportation chapter. So the priorities in this master plan have been informed by quite a bit of community input. We had, if you recall back to late 2020, we had the community survey. We had 655 people respond to that community survey. We estimate that's about 12% of all households in East Bay Township, which we were very happy with that response rate comparatively to other surveys. We also did community focus groups. We had senior citizen focus group, families with children, business, transportation, and natural resources, and I believe all of you participated in some capacity in those focus groups. So after the existing conditions were documented and the community input was gathered, the Planning Commission worked to develop an action plan, review the future land use map, and discuss zoning priorities. So you'll recall there was a joint session with the Township Board to develop that 5-year implementation framework for the action plan. So you'll see the action plan, draft action plan, which is Chapter 11, really takes, it's really the basis for that action plan is the community input that we received, as well as some of these Planning Commission visioning sessions that we worked through. So tonight, the Planning Commission can discuss, I'd love to hear any recommended changes that you have to this master plan. My hope is that you would recommend it to the Township Board with any edits that you have. Once it goes before the Township Board, they need to send it out for the 63-day public comment period. So there's still ample opportunity and time for review and for planning commissioners to make recommended edits, as well as members of the public, because we have a two-month period where we're promoting, sending it out to all members of the public and soliciting feedback and input on the draft plan. After that 63-day public comment period, the Planning Commission would hold a public hearing. We would gather all of the feedback that's come in from residents and others, and you would review that and make any recommended changes, and then come back to a subsequent meeting to adopt the plan. So that's kind of the process for adopting the master plan. There's a number of steps ahead of you, but this is one step where I'd like to get some feedback from the Planning Commission, and it would be great to kind of move this forward. We are hoping to go, we actually just issued an RFP, a request for proposal, to update the zoning ordinance. And so that's going to kind of start once we have this master plan draft, because the zoning ordinance, as we all know, needs to be updated, and it needs to be based on the master plan. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at to keep things moving forward.
Thank you. We'll just open it up for general comments. Judy?
No, let's start with Renee, because you don't want to start with me. Claire did a wonderful job, but go ahead.
Gosh. I mean, yeah, like Claire said, I kind of came in midstream. I mean, I've read this draft, and I'm not sure that I have a lot to add at this point. I'd like to just sort of hear what everyone's got to say.
Okay, we'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay, Carl?
Yeah, no, I read it, and I've looked at a number and been involved in writing one or two. I think it looks great, Claire. I mean, congratulations. I think it's really well done. I do have one question, and this is a very general question. I have maybe some more specific ones, but on the general layout of the contents, it seems to me that we have an introduction, and then the next, most of the chapters are really related to call it existing facilities, community profile, but we put the community vision and the discussion of the surveys prior to that. And it seems to me that that would be better placed right before our future land use map and action plan, because that's really, we're capturing the community's vision based on the information that is existing, and then we lead right into action. Now, there may be a prescribed way of doing this, and I don't know. So that just was one thing I thought of as I read through it. And then I have a few more specific things, but they're really specific, and I don't know if I want to. But maybe I'll start with one. And I kind of came in late, certainly, and I filled out the surveys. I wasn't involved in the focus groups. But what I'm wondering a little bit about, we have both in our future land use map and in the descriptions, this area is described as a town center. And I know that we can't regulate speeds, but it can never be a town center with 55 miles an hour through this intersection over here. And I don't know if there's a way to put in there that we should work with the governing bodies to try to get that more consistent with a town center feel, or, again, it's very specific, but it's something that I always notice.
Yeah.
And, because I drive this every day. And I don't see, and I think that sentiment came through in the public comment and in the surveys, but I don't see it reflected in our action plan specifically. And I know we can't regulate that ourselves, but if there might be a way to suggest working with the road commissioner or whoever governs this stretch of Hammond to slow it down prior to getting to the corner section where we're describing our future town center and commercial development, schools, all this other stuff.
Could I just put one, I think that's a great comment, and just one brief comment related to that. Beth and I are actually meeting with the road commission in a couple of weeks, and absolutely, that's a huge barrier to kind of the vision for the East Bay corners. And so one thing that we've spoken with the road commission about is when they are going to be redoing the intersection, making some improvements at Hammond and 3 Mile, and having some boulevards along there.
Oh,
So
that'd be great.
And potentially having, in addition to the safe crossings that are going to be installed at 3 Mile and Hammond as part of the Safe Routes to School, are there additional locations for safe crossings? So I know that doesn't get to the 55 mile an
Yeah,
hour,
sure.
but some placemaking, some
Those are all traffic
pedestrians,
calming things. that
tail
people
lighting,
Yeah.
some boulevards, those types of
Oh,
things are
that's good.
absolutely high priority and have been kind of working on those.
So the talk of a roundabout there is no longer talk?
I think they're still looking at options. I
Okay.
don't think that they've made that they're definitely going to make improvements to that intersection, and I don't think they've identified the exact improvements.
Sure.
I think that's great, Carl, because, and we all drive that a lot. You'd think they'd slow down because of the schools, and that doesn't
down
seem.
for anything anymore. Including people walking their dog on the side of the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
just
that,
don't.
you'd think they would, because, there are signs that say that. We don't even have flashing, that might be something to discuss too, the flashing school signs and school zones, and, I mean,
People heading east on Hammond.
Yeah.
To get the light, I
Yeah.
going 60 through there.
yeah. And you'd even think the north-south, because there's schools on both sides of that, and then schools on the other side there. That's a great comment. I concur with that.
Well, generally, most of the people and their concerns had indicated the speed that was going on. And if we, certainly in the business area, 31, if we could slow that down, because one of the biggest problems is that it's just virtually impossible, if not, but certainly dangerous, to try and cross 31 for, the people on the south getting over to the north or the north to the south. And a lot of businesses have suffered because you can't get between these areas. So I think the speed is an excellent point all the way around. So when you talk to them, remember Munson. So, Judy? Well, I'm sorry, Carl.
No,
Okay,
Carl has more.
So this is less of a comment about the content, But more, I was looking over question 2 of the survey, and this is about which of the following housing options would you support adding in East Bay Township? And the vast majority support single-family homes, yet it's really not, and I don't know if this is just a reflection of the survey instrument or people answering it, but it's really not what we need necessarily from a zoning standpoint. I mean, it seems that we need to add more affordable options, and I think we did address that in the action plan from what I see, and it's clearly happening here. Just struck me that the survey really showed that people want single-family homes, and they really don't want the kind of multi-unit things or even, or higher density. So that's.
And I did, as a consultant, I worked in a lot of different communities and saw this question reflected in community surveys kind of throughout northern Michigan. And I think you'll find in, East Bay Township has, I think, 87% of all residents live in single-family homes. And I think even higher percentage of survey respondents lived in single-family homes. And so generally, people are, most comfortable with single-family. That's where they live. Those are the types of neighborhoods that they're more familiar with. And so I think that could be part of the reason. And, I do think that East Bay Township, as a region, we do need more of all housing options. So it's not just, the surveys that Networks Northwest has put out, the housing market analysis shows that we do need more multifamily and more renter housing, but we also need more single-family, all housing options are limited at this point, so. But that's a great comment and observation.
I wonder if there's a correlation there, Carl and all of us, that the single-family homes, when you look at it, 67% of our population is over 55. So you're looking at, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but, it is true that, maybe that's a reflection of the single-family.
Of what they're
Yeah,
comfortable with.
yeah, right.
The survey response was definitely up in the higher
Yeah.
ranges as well.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah, and I think too, when we look at incomes, if 67% are over 55, maybe 65 and over, which would be 27% less, so 40% are in retirement, and their income that they're going to report to the feds is going to be a heck of a lot less. So that's skewed. That income thing is skewed. And according to my statistics professor, there's 3 kinds of lies. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So we really have to think about, and I really think you have some great points there. We really want to read into this and figure out what we're really looking at.
And I do think the action plan reflected, for me, the correct goals. It kind of reflected a mix, that we need more housing in general, but we should have a mix. So I thought that was good. Let me just see if I have any more specific things that I wrote down here.
And I think just to add to that, right now our zoning ordinance, we have some barriers to a variety of housing. I think single-family housing options, we absolutely have adequate zoning for that right now, because basically all residential districts, single-family housing is an opportunity, so it's kind of driven by the market. But right now, we have some pretty significant barriers in our zoning ordinance for other types of housing.
Judy?
Do you have some more specifics? Carl might have some.
We just covered that one, sorry.
No. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of pages. You're right.
I think if somebody else has some other ones, I think those were my two main ones. Was certainly the Hammond, the town center thing was. So Judy, if you have other ones, please go ahead.
A couple before we get into like content type stuff, but I was going to ask you, when we talk about housing, you know, there was a chart, oh gosh, I don't know what page it was on, but we're talking about, you know, amending our zoning a little bit. Were we thinking about making setbacks for high density, like 6 feet setbacks on the side, and then 8 feet for medium density and 10 for low?
That's the current,
Oh,
the current zoning.
That's current?
The landscaping, in the landscaping subcommittee that we worked with, I plan to recommend as a part of the zoning ordinance update, increasing the landscape buffering and setbacks between, you know, single-family and multifamily, because right now we have pretty limited requirements in terms of buffering between those two types of uses. So I think that could go a long way in kind of helping transition those types of uses as we go from single-family to multifamily, increasing some of the buffering and landscaping requirements as well as setbacks.
and then also, so that should help with the housing, having those setbacks be those numbers, because those are pretty, that isn't a real intense requirement for those districts. What is our goal? I didn't see, and maybe you can clarify it, Claire, to push some of this a little bit more, given what we've been reading in the Ticker and the Record Eagle and all over about septics and wells and what the state is at, and we're like the most in the country with least monitoring. What are we going to do to try to push this toward the growth boundary, and build the housing and the commercial more there, and really use our infrastructure wisely?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, right now, any type of commercial, most commercial, all multifamily is all within the urban growth boundary. So any type of kind of non-single-family residential development is going to be within that urban growth boundary and required to hook up to public water and sewer. But I think also having that septic ordinance goal in the master plan is great, because as we know, we have a lot of septic systems right now, and so starting to get a better handle on those septic systems, whether that's a time of transfer ordinance, point of sale, or
One of the things mentioned,
mandatory
Claire, in
inspection.
there was a wellhead protection overlay district. I don't, what is that exactly?
So there's a number of communities in Michigan that have municipal water supply, like East Bay Township, that's all groundwater, where, and Judy's got that map up, those boundaries are a delineated area where it's a 10-year time of travel, so contamination would take theoretically 10 years to get from anywhere in that bubble to the source, the groundwater municipal water source. And so within that boundary, those delineated areas, and those are delineated by Eagle, there could be limited activities. So maybe you wouldn't permit gas stations, you wouldn't permit the types of land use activities that could potentially contaminate the municipal water supply.
Yeah, and Claire and I had talked about this when this first came about, and I did send a map that also shows the oil and gas wellheads. And you would, if we could overlay that, we really want to be cognizant of that, because there's a vein that runs through the Niagaran vein, runs actually through the Forest Lakes area. And all those are on septic and wells. So, we might want to really look into that. And, I wish we had a gazillion dollars to bring septic and sewer, sewer and water out through a lot of those areas. But I think this is key, that we need to, and I'd like to really see us be consistent in the more in the lakes, the Boardman River and the natural area with the amount of density. One is 5 acres, one is 2.5, and one is 1 acre. And then also, I don't know if we have anything that you should have at least 100 feet of frontage. Is it 200 on the Boardman River you have to have for a home? I don't know. Or is it just the 5 acres?
The Boardman River, I believe, is 2.5.
Right, 2.5, but.
And then the natural area is
But we
5.
don't say, like someone could have a lot of 50 feet, someone could have 45 on a lake or on the Boardman, you know, where we've got to really try to increase those, I'd like to see all those densities be the same. They overlap, you know, at least the lakes area should go to 2.5, and that would push people toward the growth boundary. 2.5
Yeah, so
acres.
that would be a change to the future land use. And that would eventually change zoning. Right now, the zoning as well as future land use kind of shows the lakes area as one
One.
dwelling unit per acre.
Right. And I think it should be 2.5 with the natural area being 5 acres. That one is 5 acres, I believe, currently.
The natural area.
Yes, yeah. At least bring those two into line. That seems logical to me. So I'd like us to see if we could consider that and think about things we could do maybe to, you know, really do the housing density and whatever densities we want to support our infrastructure. With the roads are better, where there's sewer and water normally, that we'll see. And a couple other places. We should really do that. Those are some key things I have. I also think that it does say in here that we will be working with, we've heard a lot about aquatic invasive species and about protecting our areas. I really think we really need to back up our words in here, like we were talking about point of sale septic. According to that last article, was it Wednesday or Sunday in the Record Eagle? Oh my goodness, it was amazing how bad the septics are. And, we've got to really do something about that. So I think putting some action behind what's in here is going to be really key. Now, can we talk about nitty-gritty, or people have some overreaching?
Sure. How is it that, this is kind of a random question, but, so there's counties that implement, like Kalkaska, Benzie,
The health department, yeah.
and then here, it's individual, like I think the only one is Long Lake that has the point of sale, if I'm not mistaken.
In Grand Traverse
Right.
County. Yeah, there's quite a few townships in Leelanau County that have the point of sale, but
Okay.
my understanding is the counties that have it, both the Board of Commissioners as well as the Health Department Board, both have to adopt that ordinance,
Right.
and it's implemented and
Right.
by the Health Department.
Who initiates that, that request or that, because I do feel that they're really beneficial, because, number one, you can't waive that inspection. I mean, that's making sure that those are getting checked, and, I've had situations in Kalkaska where, the county was forcing them to upgrade because it was a failing system. Well, if that wasn't in place and somebody didn't do their homework, those things get missed. So who implements that? Do they,
Who's
like, who gets the ball rolling on?
With the ordinances?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think that Leelanau County would be a great resource for us. There's a group called, I think it's Leelanau Clean Water, and so they've been very actively working. There's a number of lake associations that have
Right.
been working with individual townships to get those townships adopting kind of a model ordinance, but really what they're trying to do is get it countywide. And, obviously, there's politics involved in that, and when you're doing it at the township
Always.
versus the county, it's a larger geographic area, there's more constituents, and so many of the townships have decided to go the route of implement it at the township first and have some level of success.
Which is
and
better
then-
than nothing, except that at least when it's at the county, it's consistent. I mean, my goodness, it's just, when you have all these different, trying to keep it all straight is crazy.
Except sometimes they define a failing septic system by walking into the drain field. If the drain field is wet, then that's a failing system, and it's deeper than, I didn't mean that as a pun, but it's deeper than just having, a failing drain field. So we've really got to be
But that is a good
clear on this.
indication, Judy, that.
It is, but
So
I don't want to get to that point.
Yeah, I
You know?
mean, it could be simply, there could be cracks in the septic tank.
Right,
I mean,
right.
there's lots of different things.
Now, Renee, do you know is there a well potable water inspection that has to be done too? I mean,
That is
do we?
included, again, I think it's
Would that
probably
be-
but like in.
Usually the same, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
They're
done at the
usually-
same time
Yeah.
by the county.
Well, I'm saying that if we do a septic, I think we should do a water,
No,
a
it's
well.
together.
Oh,
It's
it's
usually
together?
together.
Okay,
It's
all
a
right.
well and septic.
Okay,
Yeah.
And then
So-
they do samples and make
Yeah,
sure there's no
right.
nitrates and
Right.
bacteria and.
right. Because we still have, believe it or not, we still have a lot of shallow 2-inch wells
Yeah, we do.
around too that are,
I
you know,
just
are tough.
Sold
to-
one, it was only 25 feet deep.
Pardon?
I just sold a house 25 feet deep.
It's probably okay with water.
Probably.
So it sounds like this should be definitely a high, and in our
Yeah.
action plan, it is a high priority, but it sounds like this is something we could
Yeah.
definitely get started on sooner
Yeah.
rather than later.
agree,
And
too.
in most communities, this is a police power ordinance, so it's general law. It wouldn't be included in the zoning ordinance because it's regulating inactivity as opposed to a land use, but
Okay.
it's, absolutely something that the planning commission can work on, draft, and make recommendations to the township board for
Yeah,
adoption.
I think that one is right on as far as
Yeah.
being important.
At least start there. At least start with the point of sale.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we can add, inspection later, periodically. But I think start with point of sale. Let's start small.
Sure.
It's better than nothing.
Right, because, we got to start someplace. The other thing, some nitty-gritty, a few nitty-gritty things. I think that you did a great job. The pictures are awesome, but on some, we don't really identify them, and some we do. Is there a way to, say, Arbutus Lake 5 Park or something on, identify the photo? Some, Gary Howe did a nice job, but on some we do, some we don't identify. Is that possible?
Yeah, I thought I had identified all of them, but,
Maybe it didn't come out to all of us. Yeah, that's all I would say on that one, and then I have a few gosh. Let's just go through this. Page 57. I always like fewer words, so I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not a person of fewer words, but I like fewer words when I write. So I'm wondering on Bay Shore Corridor, if we could say something like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth.
I'm
the-
sorry, 57
Fif-
is the Parks and Recreation.
Yes, Bay Shore Corridor Strategy. Do you have that?
That's,
2014? How come mine are,
57?
yeah, page 57 of 172. That's what it says on
Oh,
mine.
57 of 172.
Okay.
Okay, you're going by the,
Yeah. Are you able to,
the,
it's the Beach District.
oh, okay.
Okay, that one, where it says Bay Shore Corridor. The fourth sentence.
it would be page, what, 6 of,
5.
Sorry, I didn't number them that way.
of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this,
This one.
okay, you got it. Could we say something like, the Bay, fourth sentence down, Bay Shore Corridor identifies values, comma, goals, comma, and strategies for implementation?
Sure, and I would say, Judy, and
Send
this
those to
would-
you.
I would defer to the planning commission, but I'd say for any specific
Okay.
wording on stuff,
Yeah.
definitely send those to me, and I'm.
Okay,
more than
and then I have a couple questions on statistics. Let me just get to those so we get that out of the way. Hold on. Just want to ask a question here. There's a lot. On page 77, no, I'll send you that. There's identification of colors missing. I can send you that. On the age distribution.
Yeah, I think the bottom got cut off.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Thank you. I'll send you that. On page 81, where we talk about race and ethnicity, I believe it says the makeup is relatively homogeneous. In 2019, 97% of the residents were white, followed by 2.3 African American or Black. I think it was followed by Latino and Hispanic at 2.9, because 2.9 is higher than 2.3.
Okay.
I think the last time. And let's see. Oh, you know what I thought was kind of interesting? That on page 84, you guys, we don't really identify anyone that's in military or government work. And we have a presence of, with Camp Grey Lake and with Coast Guard, et cetera. Is that just didn't show up in the census, or we don't?
Employer, I think that those are the categories for the
Oh.
industry sector.
Oh, okay, so,
I mean,
Just
I
a-
didn't put
okay.
those together, but.
That's okay, I was just wondering, because it is a big part of our community, especially, there's a lot of Coast Guard that live in Holiday Hills, and, it's nice to recognize
Yeah, and
that
part, that
they're
is one
around.
challenge with the census is we're
I
kind
know.
of, we're kind of, you know,
statistics.
required to use the categories that are determined by
So
the.
we should take this up with them.
It's all
Oh,
non-parametric
gee.
statistic, it's very just,
Get a hold
just,
of them. I agree, it should be in there.
No, it's okay, I was just wondering.
Yeah.
You know what I thought was really interesting, and I'd like to talk about this, was the climate on page 91, where you talk about climate change. I thought it was pretty interesting that it talks about increases in winter and spring precipitation. Well, tell me where it is, because I'd really like some precipitation about right now. It's,
Early on.
yeah, right, increased risk, and then it goes
never
down.
stopped.
It's interesting because it covers all of it, then it goes increased risk of drought, so, what is it?
Well, that's part of.
I know,
the
it's part of
trends that we're
climate change,
seeing.
I know, I
Erratic
understand.
events.
It's just, we all know weather is a very tough statistic to deal with. Let's see. Let's see here. This is a pretty, I'm sure, Claire, that this is a very difficult time to do something like this because we've had an unprecedented 100-year pandemic, which is really, this really skews the data even more. Okay, hold on. And then, well, I'll send you this stuff because there's some stuff about Brown Bridge that it's not really a pond anymore, so I'll send you that. The floodplain. Where'd we get this? FEMA? Oh, FEMA, sorry. On one of the pages, I think it's like in the beginning, and I'm sorry, I can't find it right now, you talk about consultant was used, oh, here it is, page 60. You said, the township hired a consultant. I think you should name the consultant for credibility, because when people say consultant, I'm kind of going,
I actually had the consultant name in there, and it was Beth's edit.
oh, my gosh.
We can.
Well, I would talk, I mean, this
Consultants are the worst.
this isn't a referee journal, but I would want to know who the consultant is for credibility, but that's
You know,
okay.
the
It-
consultants' names are in the credits at the
Okay.
beginning of the
They're-
master plan.
yeah, but-
So we had both Leah and Statecraft.
Yeah, and they were nice. They were very good. Let's see. Also, let's see here. What's the Holiday Hills, is the density like a acre for places up there? Is it different, it varies different?
It's up to 3 dwelling units per acre on
Okay.
water and sewer.
Okay, that's good. Let's see. With the COVID money or the money that we're getting from the state regarding the page 104, the water and sewer line update, were we going to make any changes to that since there's money availables, or are you thinking it's still going to stay the same?
That's a great question, and I think the board is going to be holding some sessions trying to figure out what they want to do with that, with those funds, with the ARPA funds.
Okay.
You mean it's not for COVID? Jeez.
Are the metro, is the metro station out on Arbutus fully staffed, or is that just part-time staffed? Or even staffed? You know, over by PGO, you know, down the road
Yeah,
from Cortez?
it is full-time.
Fully staffed, okay, because they know they have housing there. Okay. Ooh, the broadband, what do you guys think about that? You saw the map that we really need to, 100, mine's slow. And you know what the other thing is, that there's such a monopoly, you can only get Spectrum, no offense, Spectrum, but I'd like to have an option.
It's annoying.
You know, we'd like to have some options.
We need options,
Yeah, monopolies are,
not good.
and I know I talked to Beth about, in larger cities, what they tend to do, because we talked about going underground with power lines, et cetera. They've collaborated with power, water, gas, and Wi-Fi, you know, cable, Wi-Fi, that type of thing, to all go at once. But she said it's very hard to get them to collaborate digging one ditch here. I wonder what the rub is with
I mean,
that.
like all the utilities?
Yeah, you know, big cities, they dig one ditch and they all kind of use the same trench, but.
You haven't been to New York.
Well, yes, I have, but not, I don't live there. Let me say, I don't live there.
It's not all one ditch.
I know. Well, you know, New York's a lot older than East Bay Township, too. And they also have Central Park, and they also have
From
the other
personal
beautiful park.
experience. Okay.
So, yeah, anyway, I think broadband is a real biggie, too. You know, education, the trends in education are dropping of population, elementary, high school, things like that, and we've got a great schools, I think we do, both private, public, and secular, non-secular schools. I mean, we have, it's great up here. What do you think the future of, you know, what do we think about that? I mean, are we going to have to repurpose some of these buildings eventually, or, oof.
I did notice that they all had drops in attendance, other than C's who didn't report. Yeah, I don't know, I think, it's so hard to predict. I think the education is changing, people are selecting smaller schools, they're selecting homeschooling.
Yeah, that number was not in there.
Yeah,
The homeschooling was not in there.
Homeschooling
So
not
you
in there.
you really, you knew it was going down, but you couldn't compare what the homeschool issue is, how much of a
I imagine
drain.
that within the time frame of the master plan, we'd be talking about repurposing these school buildings.
No,
Just
but,
given the investment. But yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
our population continues to be skew older, and, you know, and people have other options, there's a potential that we would have buildings that would sit more vacant than they are.
And it is interesting, East Bay is an aging population, but comparatively to Traverse City, to other surrounding municipalities, has higher, larger families and more children in
I would
East.
think some of the multifamily developments going up along Haddon too would increase our student age population as well.
I would, I think some of the recently approved developments, for example, Alta Vista, and, some of the developments around Hammond, around these 4 schools, are definitely targeted towards families.
Who owns the buildings? Is that the Traverse City,
and the,
that's Traverse City
And-
TCAPS?
The Grand Traverse Academy is its own school.
Oh, right. I'm talking about the public,
Jerry Knoll and East Middle School are both TCAPs.
okay. So any decision around those buildings would,
Right, we have no zoning.
no zoning, right?
no.
Yep.
Page 108, it, having been old, there was only one real high school in Traverse City. But this has Traverse City High School. Does that mean West and Central?
No, that's the.
Oh, that's the alternative school.
East Bay
On 3
Township.
Mile, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I was confused about that. I'm sorry. Is that what it's called, Traverse City High School?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yep.
Well, news to me. Let's see here. Jens Park, do we really have 100 feet of frontage on East Bay?
I can double check that.
It didn't seem like it was 100 feet, did
Yeah,
it,
it
Jean?
was.
Is it? Do you
Yeah.
think it is?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it's 100.
When we were on that site visit.
yeah,
Looked at it.
okay. Okay. I like the part on the parks. It looks like we're doing some good things and moving forward there. I just wanted to check that. Let's see here. The other thing why people, I just want, Renee, you're really good at this, and maybe you have a comment. I bet you one of the reasons why people might be preferring single-family dwellings is everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, because as soon as you say everybody, I sound like my bad statistics. Some people I know who live in condos, their association fees are going out the wazoo because of building costs, repair costs, lumber, roofing, all that stuff. So they're really, really disenchanted with the whole HOA, type thing. So I'm wondering if, because people, as an elderly person myself and on a fixed income, it's hard to sometimes build in the inflation of the association fee, because those are uncontrollable costs. And so I'm wondering if people are preferring single-family dwellings because they're dealing with a lot of, What do you think?
I don't personally see a lot of that, because,
They're forgetting what it costs to replace a roof.
right, there's a lot of benefits that get paid for in that. And I also so the condo owners are not usually your first-time buyers, per se, you know, because, again, so it does play into them, you know, you have to add that HOA into their, you know, their debt to income. But and I also see a lot of second-time buyers, you know, coming here buying condos because it's easy. They don't have to have anybody watching the home. They don't have to worry about, you know, whatever. So I don't see that as big
A detriment?
I think that it's really just like what we said earlier. It's the demographics of, if you have a community, nobody wants to see, look at what we were dealing with over here behind Crystal Ridge. Nobody wants to stare at apartment buildings next door. I mean, they like their single-family home community, and it is a different feel. I mean, I live in English Woods, you know, it's a different feel than living in an apartment complex, you know, there's just, so I think it's change. I think it's not wanting to be, you know, I think some people worry more about increased crime, noise, et cetera, that might bring. So I think it's just a lot of things like that. I don't really know that it has anything to do with cost. I mean, that's going to be a small part of it, in my opinion, but.
Okay, anything else?
No, yeah, do you want to weigh in on any of that? I just,
I'm waiting.
you know, I
Go ahead.
just was talking about that with people that I know that live in condos, and maybe it's not in this township, they're in other townships, and they were concerned about
I
that.
think it plays a part, Judy, I just think it's a very small percentage.
Okay.
Because, I mean, like you said, the cost of a roof. I mean, getting into a single-family home may sound appealing, but first of all, we all know the prices are going ridiculously high. And, oh, by the way, when your roof goes, you're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I mean, so I don't think that's the biggest reason.
And then kind of regarding Grand Traverse County economy, so do we, our largest employer is Munson, correct? I think. And then TCAPS, and then NMC, I believe. I don't know. I'm just saying, you know, it'd be nice if,
Wait, do we list them in there, and you're
No.
questioning whether the listing is correct? Or
no, I'm just saying that we don't list them in here, and we're, you know, we're talking about diversifying our economy over the course of the, we all saw what kind of happened during COVID with tourism and hospitality and stuff, so I'm
Except when you're
wondering.
talking about Munson and MC, you're talking about the county or?
Yeah, it says Grand Traverse County economy.
Okay. I'm just
Yeah,
checking
yeah.
because the discussion is really on East Bay as opposed to.
Yeah, but we talk about the county because everybody's probably employed. I don't know what we have for, you know, what would be East Bay Township's largest employer?
So one thing that I was kind of trying to show, just with
What's that?
economic trends, is kind of where some of these, kind of the leakages and surpluses, you'll see there was some discussion of kind of what are the, where are people leaving the county to seek services, where are they coming into? Similarly, with East Bay Township, it's helpful to kind of see where are people leaving the township to seek other services, or where are people coming in to seek, so kind of looking at some of those broader trends help with informing land use and zoning.
Okay. And then some of the things that we talk about on page 130 is the beach district and access, people are talking about access to water. I think if we're really gonna put some teeth to this and, you know, talk about access to water, I think we have to back that up with protecting our water in turn. So with giving access, we're gonna have to talk about boat wash at our sites of access and try to support that as a township. You know, with access, it just doesn't happen. We've got to back it up with protections too. And then, do you think we'll move the tree, Carl, are you on the tree ordinance thing?
The committee?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, are we going to move an ordinance forward with that tree thing?
Yeah.
Or what are
and,
your
you know,
thoughts there?
I feel that based on that subcommittee that we had, I think we met 4 or 5 times. We had really good participation and recommendations that came. It was focused on kind of heritage trees along the corridor, tools for preserving those, incentivizing the preservation of those trees, as well as beefing up some of our landscaping standards, looking at buffering. And so we have some draft language that I believe the Planning Commission reviewed about a year ago, and what we decided was to just fold that into the whole zoning ordinance update. And so as I mentioned, we did issue today an RFP to update the zoning ordinance, so I'm super excited about going through that process. There's going to be, and this is kind of longer term, but we're going to be putting together a subcommittee that will work through that zoning ordinance with staff representative as well as planning commission and other.
I have a question for you on that tree subcommittee, and one of the proposals and goals is to take an inventory of the trees. And I was wondering, when we say inventory, does that include the trees that are on people's residences?
To me, I think that that's an important piece of the unique characteristics, defining character of coming into East Bay Township. We can do inventory in a couple different ways. One is more of a high-level inventory where we're using LiDAR and kind of documenting the tree canopy, and we've got that inventory in the master plan. If we really go the next step and do an on-the-ground inventory, I don't know if we'd be inventorying private residences. And that would be kind of another huge amount of cost associated with doing, an on-the-ground inventory. But I think you can get a lot of information using the LiDAR of kind of what percentage are canopy and where it's concentrated to help inform some of the zoning and policy decisions.
Yeah, because my understanding is that they were going to primarily talk about all the trees on 31, and that whole, landscape type view that you got but as you go down 31, some of those trees are on the private residences. So I was curious as to whether or not, when that inventory was taken, if it was taken, would they actually, seek the permission to say, we want to identify these trees that you have there that are, the 80-foot trees and things of that nature.
Do you think that, as a resident on that corridor, do you think that would be recommended?
It doesn't bother me, but it just seems that being on that corridor and having some 80-foot trees, I was just curious as to whether or not they would be part of the inventory or what exactly we were looking for. Is it a certain area on the business district? Is it when you come in? Or is it the entire stretch of all those trees? Because that makes up part of the ambiance of the whole area coming down.
Yeah. I think that it's helpful to have an inventory of that entire corridor, but from a zoning perspective and landscaping standards, more of those incentives and other types of development standards are focused on the commercial properties as opposed to the residential.
Yeah, I was just curious. Okay.
Do you think, I know the committee also talked about Hammond, because we know that,
That's a hot button with me, yes.
yes, they're not looking at you, I'm not just pointing to you, so sorry about that. But, maybe extending some of the tree and the landscaping things to the Hammond corridor, because,
That's one of the primary corridors that we have, and I would not see how we could avoid it.
Yeah, and I think that the landscaping will absolutely apply to all,
Okay.
Commercial.
How would that be implemented, Claire? Is that some kind of a overlay or a condition of the site plan review, or how does that?
It would be landscaping standards in the site plan review. So right now, we do have landscaping standards, but there's some deficiencies. When I look at the Garfield Township, they have very robust landscaping standards, and so it's much more prescriptive to a developer about the species, the spacing, the type of plantings that need to be done. Our landscaping standards are a little bit more deficient, in my opinion, and opportunity to beef up those standards to improve some of the developments that we're getting.
I mean, there's one other question I had in that final chapter where we talk about actions and goals. We have a recommendation to consider design standards. And then also with the redevelopment-ready communities, are those contradictory? Does the redevelopment-ready certification, I know it doesn't prohibit it, but do they conflict at all? In other words, to get certified and also have things that make it a little bit more difficult to develop?
That's a great question. I would say, so redevelopment-ready communities, I would say is the best practices, design standards, I don't believe is one, but the types of, having buildings closer to the road are the types of, best practice, looking at reducing parking, landscaping, bike parking, those types of things. So I would say those are design standards and are supported by redevelopment-ready communities.
I took that redevelopment course. I don't feel like they would conflict. I
Yeah,
feel like they were,
It's very focused on economic development.
it really is, like,
Standards
yeah.
are supportive as well
Yeah.
with that.
So I didn't get that impression when I was taking the course. It feels like it was every bit about trying to help communities
Yeah.
put the best use there, develop it, and
Yeah.
it didn't seem like there was a conflict there for me, but.
But that is a good point. I know with, like a form-based code is kind of the ultimate design standard, and there is, challenges, I think, using like a form-based code that's so prescriptive and the
Right.
type of windows and those types of things. I've heard that generally, McDonald's and those types of businesses will conform if the market makes sense and they want to locate in those places, but that is something to take into consideration. And
Okay.
And we might be able to do a lesser form-based code and not like be so prescriptive about the windows, but do like we've done before, a percentage of the front of the building needs to be window, rather than just say you got to have this type.
Well, I thought we had something like that in the airport district.
Yes, we do.
So-
We do. And then they talk about signage, visioning session for Welcome to East Bay. Where would we do that here at, it says East Bay Corners, but East Bay's pretty big, so are they just talking about general signs or?
that was recommendations from Visioning. I think John Syke and another planning commissioners saw that at the East Bay Corners.
In the transportation chapter, are those things that you gleaned from TC Tallis? Or
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
well, they talked about transportation including local roads, highways, trails, sidewalks, railroads, that type of thing. Where do we get that? That's just general information? I mean, I didn't know if there was any discussion that we wanted to include, such as light rail or trams. I mean, let's see, roads, we have transportation, highway, and Beta, I don't know.
A section on Beta.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, well, I'm just asking about, it's not a, I just think transportation is going to be interesting in the next, whoops, that's okay, I'll get it together.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm not.
I said, do you have more?
Yeah, I do.
Yep, please.
I do. Yeah, that's fine, that's all right, that's all right. It's just interesting, though, that we're not very forward-thinking about things like transportation other than automobiles and bus, like the European model. And I know they're subsidized better, with trams and light rail than we are. But it sure is nice to get around, and things do run on time normally. So I think, I think that I don't know, we don't have any, I'll be dead and gone by that time, but, it's just not very innovative, so.
Well, can I just highlight
yeah.
one piece in
Yeah.
this transportation? There's a new map that we have, is included. It's map 15, existing and future non-motorized plan and map. And so this is based on the 3-mile trail work that's been done, as well as the safe routes to school infrastructure improvements, as well as kind of a future network of non-motorized infrastructure. So I'm excited about this because the master plan survey really reiterated the importance that residents are placing on non-motorized infrastructure, sidewalks, as well as bike lanes and bike connectivity. And so my hope is to take this map and as we update the zoning ordinance, tie it back to this map. So if there's future, multifamily housing, commercial development, we can refer back to this map and make sure that those connections are in place. And so that's kind of an incremental way of putting in, the non-motorized routes as well as the sidewalks. And we have a specific map that shows, on this street, we want sidewalks. On these highways with higher speeds, we want the non-motorized trail. So I think that this is kind of a good way to incrementally start to put that in.
Yeah, and I think it could be if we increase our transportation other than non-motorized or light rail or trams or things like that, it would increase, maybe jobs in more of the transportation sector.
But then you need housing.
Yeah, right. But they might be on then a tram route and they can just hop on and hop off.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Let's see. Proposed zoning changes. So when we talk about proposed, you said that requests will be on a case-by-case basis. What do you think that means? I mean,
That would be, the way that the rezoning is done currently. If there's a request, we look at the existing zoning, the existing land use, the future land use map, and make those rezoning based on those factors.
okay. So, this says, this one, page 157, is minimum lot size 40,000 square feet. Is that 1 acre or
Just under an acre.
just, okay. So then, but the Boardman River is 2.5, so why does it say minimum lot size? I thought minimum lot size in the Boardman River was 2.5.
I can double check that.
Yeah, okay. And then and then we can kind of, my recommendation would be to look at that and bring Lakes Area and Boardman River more in line with one another. So then, are we looking also in future to set up a Forest Lakes Overlay District Subcommittee?
I think that making some changes to the Forest Lakes Overlay District would be, I don't think that we need large changes to Forest Lakes Overlay, but I do think having a subcommittee that met and reviewed any, potential changes to strengthen that language would be a good, as a part of the zoning ordinance update.
Okay. Do you think that now the natural area, Boardman River and LA District, we don't have a night sky compliance ordinance in those? Do you think that would be something we should, might consider in those areas?
Well, we have the lighting, which is a dark sky
Right.
for any commercial.
Right, commercial only,
Yeah.
right.
So you're saying for single-family residential?
The homes also.
In those areas. It's
Means the
really,
lighting would have to be dark sky compliant at somebody's residences?
That would be challenging.
Yep.
Is it a problem? I mean,
Yep.
It is.
Yeah.
think about it, think about when lights hit a lake. It's like a mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really challenging both to enforce and to enact.
Right.
It would be hard.
What kind of lights they can put in the house?
There's places that do,
Yeah,
but.
I know, I'm just
I know.
saying.
Yeah, I see the value, but I don't know how practical it would be.
Right, and then with the advent, just bringing it up, with the advent of more solar, wind energies, we have a pretty good wind ordinance that can only be 35 feet high, that type of thing, but we have no end of life in our ordinance. So like if I have a windmill at my house and it's no longer functioning, or I have a bunch of solar panels, what happens to them when they become lifeless? You know, we've got to have an end of life so we don't end up with all this trash.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, well,
say,
solar panels have, they can have something in them. A windmill itself, I think, is not, I mean, it's just an electric motor essentially.
The hydraulics, yeah.
Well,
start
certainly
to-
hydraulic fluid. But
Yeah.
that would be, you can't just scrap that, right?
No,
No, I hate to tell you, but the blades on those large windmills, they bury them.
Yep.
yeah, and the
They
landfills will
don't,
be full
they
by.
don't reclaim them in any way. They, right now, are currently burying them.
yeah, I would say utility scale, is particularly solar, because I think there's less of a market for wind, but I think utility scale solar is definitely standards that we need to have in our zoning ordinance update.
The surveys indicated that people aren't interested in that here.
The utility scale solar.
Utility scale solar,
Right.
rooftop and
Yeah,
single family.
exactly.
And they don't really care for a solar array, but it's going to happen.
Right now, we don't really have anything in our, if we were approached by someone that wanted to put in utility scale solar,
Okay.
we have really, our ordinance doesn't speak to it at all, so,
It's also a little rough during the winter.
You know-
Would that, Claire, would that have to happen in commercial, for instance, if somebody wanted to do utility scale solar, would it have to be in a commercial district?
so that's a great question, and that's part of the reason that our updated ordinance would need to address it. Right now, we don't have it as a use regulated in our land use table, so we've generally been permitting them as accessory structure for any, small-scale residential. The Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy just recently put in a fairly large installation, and so it would have been great to have some standards in place for that. We reviewed it as a part of the planned unit the PUD, and, made sure that it adhered to all of the setback requirements as an accessory installation, and also looked at best practices related to, refraction and the buffering and stuff like that, but having those provisions would be definitely something we want to look at as we update the ordinance. And maybe it's not permitted in any districts, or maybe it's certain districts, and that would be a conversation that the planning commission would have.
And that would be part of this RFP for the rewrite of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that we're looking at especially with the housing issues, looking at a cap on short-term rentals. And we do have in here rental properties. I don't know if you want to term them short and long-term rental rather than just rental properties on one of the charts, but I can send that to you and see what you want to do there, because, that's going to be, that could be an issue with housing all the way around. We don't want to push, we'd like to have some long-term rental places available with them. And then, we're getting toward the end here. I think that's it. Thank you.
Couple of comments. First of all, I commend you, because this information that we had, I kind of compared it to the last one, and this really drills down into East Bay. You walk away with a good feeling you know what exactly East Bay is all about. I mean, I have to say it was really good. My only question, well, I have a couple. When we deal with some of the statistics, especially with, I think it was one where it was the average need or preference for things like rental, monthly rentals, what they pay for and how much on the house, they really were from 2017, 2015. Do we have any more update information that we could use rather than going way back to, 5, 6, 7 years ago?
So when we put this together in, 2020, end of 2020, early 2021, did all this demographics, that was the best information we had. We were using the American Community Survey, which has the 5-year rolling averages.
Right.
So once, the census data obviously is coming out now, and so I think that what would be most appropriate without redoing this master plan and kind of, is to have an addendum where we update the demographic trends. And I think that that would be an appropriate thing to look at. And-
Yeah, I mean, it's throughout. We have information, and it goes
Yeah,
back
so it's-
5, 6, and I'm saying to
Yeah,
myself,
That was the most
And-
up-to-date available.
and I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Grossly inaccurate.
Well, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, I mean, it just has taken right off. The other thing, which is really a real minute question, but there are a couple of pictures in here of people. Do we have their permission to use those pictures?
That's a good question. There's some members of the public at the pancake breakfast,
Yes.
and so these have been kind of township used on the website and stuff in the past, but I will double check that.
Yeah, there are some, there's one in particular that on our page 75 of 172 or page 23, I would think that that person would want to,
Yeah, I will look into the
Yeah.
permissions for that.
And then throughout, there are some little jots and tittles where I can send that to you, where, maps are misnamed or.
Perfect, thank you.
I can do that. But other than that, I like the fact that when we got back into the goals, it really has these listed, and throughout, we have some other goals that I picked up on that were not on those sheets. I was just wondering if we would have, let's say, an appendix that would say, hey, these are all the goals. We do have it back here as far as the timelines, but there are sometimes other things listed in here, and I was just wondering, that weren't in the action
So
plan.
those are the ones that didn't rise to the level when we prioritized and worked with the Planning Commission and Township Board. They didn't rise to the level of being in that 5-year action plan. So if you think there is anything missing, we can certainly, take a look at adding that to the.
Yeah, there was one or two, I thought,
Yeah.
I'm surprised, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it's very well done. I like it a lot. So, as I read through this, and I was thinking in terms of what we do here, how really good this is, because it really gives us a very good guide on what we need to go forward, especially in the next phase, which is the ordinance write-ups, because we do need to fix some of those things. So, are there any other points, questions?
The only question I have is that, we have those 2 industrial, and one of them, I think, does not have sewer and water down, is that right? The Peninsula,
I believe that they have some limitations
Yeah.
in water, but they do have.
they do have. Do you think there's any goals for some economic clean industry improvement in our area? We talk about it, us increasing housing and density and things like that, but do we want to attract any, what kind of goals might we have economically to attract?
To lure a green
Yeah.
industry here.
Yeah,
I don't think, we don't call out any specific industries in the economic development goals and actions in here. Yeah, I guess I think it'd be nice, but I'm a little bit hesitant to prescribe what type of businesses might, I'd rather proscribe which ones we wouldn't want.
Okay, I like that, I like that.
Yeah,
Okay, go for it, Carl, tell
Well,
us.
maybe not like an oil refinery or something like
Yeah.
that.
we did mention an industrial feeding, yeah. that's,
No, but I think that we want to diversify, because, we've seen what can happen to just we've seen what happened maybe to the auto industry when things went awry for a while. We've seen what happened, what COVID did to tourist industry, and to be more diversified in our township with things we want to incentivize would be cool.
Yeah, and I do think that, I know that the planning commission talked a little bit about, is there more industrial land that we can kind of take a look at? Right now, they're having those industrial parks do make it very desirable, because they've got the municipal water and sewer right there, so it's a very attractable place, kind of from an economic development standpoint, and is there a need for identifying additional industrial
They both have
sites?
vacant sites.
They do, yeah.
Yep, they do.
And, the agriculture always worries me, because I think we're losing. We've got some great spaces here too, but it's a tough business.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, at this point, do we need to do anything with this, or we just,
I would recommend, so the possible motion is to recommend, with suggested changes, the draft master plan to the Township Board of Trustees to be sent out for the 63-day public comment period. And if you made that motion, then we would take that to the Township Board as the next step, and they would be the ones to send it out for the 63-day public
okay,
comment.
after we send in all the corrections to you?
You can do it now without making those changes, and I can, you can make the motion to send it to the board with the changes, and
Right.
you can send the changes to me. I think it can still go to the Township Board.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm just saying, but it has those, we need to put in the fact there'll be changes in it.
I would recommend that, yes.
Okay, right.
I would so move that we move the master plan forward to the Township Board with the said changes and changes forthcoming to Claire.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll support.
Okay. Motion by Judy to move to the board with changes, seconded by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job.
Okay.
Very nice. That's a,
Great, thanks,
Tough
guys.
job.
Thank you.
And if you could send those to me, if possible, by the end of this week, because then I can get it out to the board in a reasonable time for them to review prior to their June meeting.
Sure.
That'd be great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are at public comment. Is there anybody for public comment on anything that was on the agenda this evening?
Hello, Carol Kusel from East Bay Township. Didn't have planned comment tonight, but because of some comments made tonight, I want to talk briefly and hopefully in an organized manner about the night sky compliance. I sincerely, deeply hope that you will really think about the night sky compliance. Perhaps there's a specific definition about it, but it doesn't mean that there's no lights. I mean, the township could make a definition of that. And just because something is difficult to enforce doesn't mean you shouldn't attempt to deal with something that is causing problems to other people. So examples of that is that, particularly in the lakes area, the night lights do reflect off of the water, particularly the lake bodies, and it's amplified extensively. And even without that amplification, a new trend is to string the large, not Christmas lights, but large lights on patios, and then leave them on, oftentimes throughout the whole night. And this is especially true for those people who are at the short-term rentals. Is it because they came up and they enjoy the enjoy being up north, but then they fear up north? Or is it because they forget, or whatever? There's ways that that could be managed. There could be time limits. I didn't get to read all the master plan that you have now. Looks wonderful, but the old one had a reference to East Bay Township and that starry night sky, some phrase in it about that. And many people do choose to live here because of that. So please think about that. And even without the reflection on the bodies of water, when you have those big lights or other, those strings of lights, the large, big strings of lights, but even other outside lights, neighbors are affected. Sleeping is affected. We have a bedroom when certain lights are left on all night long that's barely usable because the shades that we have in it don't block it out. And we're a half a dozen properties down from it, and on a curve, there is effect. And then there's not only the effect on people, but there's the effect on nature, particularly during migration seasons, and but also at other times. So please reconsider your discussion here about night sky compliance. It doesn't have to be total dark sky, but it could be caps over the lights. It could be certain time frames, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for the
Thank
work
you.
you do.
Anybody else?
I will say the loons did not like the full moon eclipse the other night.
Okay.
Or maybe they did. I wasn't sure, but they were talking quite a bit.
Last call. Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.